McCarver, as you all know, from Reptile UV. Jimmy Kahn, my camera and production man, who's actually making this video for us, went to great lengths to produce an excellent lighting video, and you can see it on our website as well as this one. But because of the phone calls we've gotten, both Jimmy and myself, over trying to explain what the Reptile lighting as a process, not a bulb, means, we've decided to produce this video as well. There's a process we're going to use that can be applied to any size habitat to get proper reptile lighting. We can get a very sophisticated lighting system without having to spend a lot of money. Using this very small habitat, and if you have a reptile with a habitat smaller than this, the first thing I have to tell you is get a larger habitat. We're going to use a series of bulbs. Reptile lighting is what? A process, okay? Not a bulb. We're going to use 3 different bulbs and a series of timers to be able to accomplish this. And really a 4th fixture with a heat emitter can be used to complement this. Now, the larger the habitat, the more lights we're going to need to do this. But in this small habitat, these will do. We have a 5000K fluorescent tube. This is to give us an excellent quality light throughout the habitat. Your fluorescent lighting should expand over the length of the habitat, if possible, when we're dealing with a confined area like this. We have a halogen light. Halogen lights, which we have on our site, have been proven to be 4000K and better, give an excellent light source to help round out the light spectrum. And then we have our EV 60 watt kit. Now, we're using the EV bulb because of the size of the habitat. If we used a 100 watt or a 160 in a habitat this small, we'd probably get too high an ambient air temperature. The EV kit will last a lot longer than a self-ballasted bulb, and it allows you to control the heat that you have in that confined area a lot more than any self-ballasted lamp. First thing we need before we can set up any lighting system with heat is the temperature gun. So we need to get ourselves a temperature gun. Whether you buy one from me or someone else, we can use probe thermostats, but they're nowhere near as efficient in testing temperatures all over the habitat. You'll see that in just a moment. Second, we're going to need some inexpensive timers. You can get these timers shortly from us, but you can get them down at any good hardware store. Timers are a must in setting up a proper lighting system for any habitat. Now, in order to test the system with a infrared temperature gun, you simply take your arm and put it inside. Now, you notice the screen is still on here. You might say, boy, Bob, that'd be a lot easier if we took the screen off and took our temperatures. The problem is that every screen, regardless of the diameter of the holes in the screen, will block light, heat, and UV to different degrees. So it's absolutely essential to take your temperatures directly under the bulbs to find the hottest spots, and always through your screen to get an accurate reading. We're going to take some readings in the hide spot. We notice we have 2 hides, one on that side of the habitat, one on this side. Where you position your hides makes no difference. It's really whether or not they're going to be a little bit cooler and give an animal somewhere to get away from the stress of everyday life. The temperature gun is real nice because we can stick that inside the habitat, even though we can't see in there, push the button, take a look at our temperature and go, hey, 85 degrees. So we have 101 degrees directly under the lights, 85 degrees in the hides. For bearded dragons or animals like that, this is an excellent temperature. And actually, of course, because we're dealing with a leopard gecko, these are good temperatures for a leopard gecko as well. Your halogen light should control your light cycle. If you're using a 12-hour-a-day light cycle, you set your timer to go on at whatever time you want it to be. Most people like between 6 and 7 in the morning and can go off 12 hours later. The second light to come on is your UV and secondary heat source. The Megaray. In a larger habitat, we can use a self-ballasted bulb. In the smaller habitat, we're going to use the EV kit. This light's going to be on for about 8 hours a day. Even the new metal halide lighting that we have should never be used more than 6 to 8 hours a day. This light is now going to come on second, let's say around 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we have now discussed both the halogen lamp, which is going to come on for your 12-hour light cycle, And we're using basics here. Understand when I say 12-hour light cycle, I mean, if you really want to get specific, we could have it be a 14-hour light cycle during the summer and down to 10 hours during the winter. This is your preference. There's been a lot of observation on how this affects your animals. Some say it affects them a lot, some say it doesn't, so we're using 12 hours a day as our basic light cycle. We've also gone over how long our UV cycle will be. 8 o'clock is a good time to bring your UV and light and heat cycle on. Both these lights produce light and heat, and our EB kit is producing the ultraviolet. The important thing to remember by setting up these two multiple light sources with heat is that this is going to allow your animal to photoregulate. And before we talk about our fluorescent light, let's discuss a little bit about photoregulation. Every animal will thermoregulate, meaning need to get warm, before they're going to photoregulate, which means to get under ultraviolet to produce vitamin D3. If we give the animal the choice between the two, if we have light and heat in at least two places, and in a small habitat like this, we can do that. And in a larger habitat, we can actually have multiple basking areas, and we still only need one UV source. This will allow your animal to move in and out of the ultraviolet as it needs to. For decades, there has been the debate, how much UV does this animal need? The answer is, who are we to decide? The sun is the same around the world. We let the animal decide if we don't force them into pushing too much ultraviolet or not enough ultraviolet. So by producing these two light and heat sources and giving them the amount of UV they would get at about 10 o'clock in the morning, which is what the Megaray does under the recommended distances, your animal will now, in a very small area, in a microhabitat, be able to choose for itself, how much UV do I need? Their body tells them, and they'll be able to decide that for themselves. Okay, now we're nearing the end of the little lesson on how to set up a microhabitat with a very sophisticated lighting system at a very small cost. The third light we're going to introduce, and we can do this with a linear tube or with compact fluorescence, and Reptile UV has both 5000K compact fluorescence and linear tubes. The only difference is if you use the compacts, you need a larger area because they need to be put in screw-in sockets as well. We really like to see two bulbs used instead of a single bulb used. Now remember that we are using Hard to Kill's habitat, so we didn't change Hard to Kill's habitat for this video. We'd like to see two 5000K tubes set up. We'd like to see the 5000K tubes come on at, and there's no scientific research for this, but during the brightness of the day, which would be, let's say around 10 or 11 o'clock until maybe 3 in the afternoon. So if the fluorescent tube comes on the last timer, and it comes on so that it will stay on now during that shorter light cycle, it will light up the entire habitat like it's daylight. And for a lot of animals, or a lot of different species, this may be important because this will trigger the animal's response, hey, it's time to go into my hide, even though it's the middle of the day. Too many times we see animals that will stay under their UV light source all day long. When someone calls me up and says, you know, my animal loves your Megaray, it just stays under that bulb all day long. I think of two things. Number one, the animal is suffering from metabolic bone disease before we introduce the Megaray, and his body is just thirsting up the ultraviolet to develop D3 to get over the metabolic bone disease. The second thing is, you don't have a secondary light source and heat source, do you? As we're describing here, we have a very small habitat that'll show you that you can set this up. If someone tells me, Bob, I don't want to use all those bulbs, get yourself a gerbil. I want to thank you for visiting Reptile UV, the only true source for important and true information.